he's literally nothing but his good long hair. He has great hair, but under his hair, certainly no brain. Well, here we are, one last time to talk about this dog shit season of the Traitors US. Season 4 finally came to an end. I had to torture myself to watch some of the finale. I did not watch all of the finale. That was not going to happen. I had hopes that maybe the reunion would at least be okay, but frankly, I found the reunion to be equally as bad and cringe as the finale, unfortunately. As for the finale, Rob does get the win, which I said would probably happen way back when I reviewed episodes 1 through 3, because the edit this season was so over the top obvious for that for some reason. I, on one hand, want to say I kind of get it. Maybe the editing was so heavy handed because this cast was just that bad in general that they couldn't even edit in someone to challenge his edit midway through the season, I guess. I think any good editor would at least try to do that, though. But they didn't. So, yeah, I mean, I come out of this finale feeling like I have felt all season, like this is the worst season of the Traitors I've ever seen. I have not seen all the franchises, but as I've been saying, definitely the worst Faithful I've seen. I know people have said there's a season on Australia where the Faithful are bad. I haven't seen Australia, but I've seen the UK, the US, and New Zealand. And this Faithful team was the equivalent of playing with like those car crash dummies, those test dummies that they put in cars to test them. Just no brains whatsoever. Mora came out of this finale looking the worst, which is not surprising. I've been dragging her for weeks. She really is a bird-brained bitch. Like, and she looks like a bird too with her plastic surgery and her voice, like her squawking voice. So yeah, Mora all around probably comes out of this season maybe looking the worst out of anybody. And I've never watched After Sun with the Love Island shows, but I certainly will never watch them now, because if I never hear Mora's voice again, it will be too soon. Mora was the key to Rob's victory, because going back to last week, we talked about how Rob had an absolutely awful performance at the roundtable when he was called out about the Candiace vote for him and his change up in general by Natalie. It was a poor performance at the roundtable. Mora defended him better than Rob did. I will also continue to die on the hill that these last few episodes of the season showed just how bad of an actor Rob was. So the fact that the faithful continued to get tricked by him time after time after time once again speaks to how dumb of a game most people played in the end, and why Rob is not one of the best traitors ever. Because the two best traitors, one from the US, one from the UK, did such a good job that by the end of the season, their names were not in people's mouths. That's how good of a job that they did. But Rob was in people's mouths by the end of the season, because even the stupid ass ice skaters had been feeling like Rob was a traitor. The ice skaters had it figured out these last two rounds. Where they went wrong was not trying to talk to that long-haired, slow person whose name is Mark, who barely got any airtime, but I'm glad he didn't, because he also comes out of this season as one of the people I never want to see again. He's literally nothing but his good long hair. He has great hair, but under his hair, certainly no brain. So, yeah, if they could have convinced Mark last week, maybe they could have actually won this game and did something as faithful this season, but they didn't. But they come into the finale knowing who the traitors are. They called it out as Eric and Rob, but they needed Mora. And that's where they gone wrong, because Mora is so male-centered and so easily charmed and flirted with by Rob. That has to be the only reason why she was so loyal to Rob. That and the fact that they are both from Love Island, I guess. But like, she stuck to him closer than even Tara and fucking Johnny stuck together. That's the crazy part to me. But I digress. They needed Mora. They couldn't get it. Mora voted Johnny out. Then what really annoyed me, and it just once again shows how terrible this gameplay was, is that all season long, all the traitors have been women. And Mora can't think for 1 second that it can't be Tara. Why would it be Tara? Why would all the traitors really be women? Like, let's be fucking for real for a second, Mora. But no train of thought whatsoever from her lack of fucking brain cells. She decides to vote out Tara and go to the end with the two traitors. Mora played one of the worst. She played the worst faithful game ever, and this is coming off of last season on this show, which also had some bad faithful, and somehow Mora topped them. Another example of why this season sucked and why this cast sucked is the fact that Eric actually made it to final 3 in the first place, because Eric was a terrible faithful, and yet he still managed to make it to final 3 as a traitor. I can't condemn these traitors any more than I already have. So I guess we will move on. But I just want to say that they really were a complete shithole of a group. And then the reunion, I mean, the Housewives are going to housewife, and people get mad at the Housewives for being emotional, but at least they give us content in the reunion. I mean, I will say I think Candiace does the most, but that's not surprising. I mean, Rob was right in telling Candiace at the reunion that she ruined her own game, and she did. She should have kept people in the game that would have got her further, like Monet, but she didn't, and that was Candiace's mistake. However, something I've only touched upon a little bit was the accusations out there that Colton and Rob were cheating, and, you know, I have my opinions about Colton. And I stick by those opinions because he's a sketchy person in real life. So I can definitely see that happening. But I never really paid it no mind because there are some strict rules in the game. But when Candiace called it out at the reunion and Colton was fumbling over his words and Rob was doing the same bad acting he did at most roundtables, it actually made me think that it was true. It made me think that Rob and Colton off camera did discuss Rob being a traitor and Rob cheating during it. They did not come off as telling the truth in that situation to me, especially watching Rob poorly lying all season with his bad acting. That's exactly what he did at the reunion too. So that was sketchy. And then the worst part of the reunion is, like, I'm glad that Lisa did ask Colton his comment about holding her hostage. That did need to be called out because of who we know Colton to be. But as most of us predicted, the edit for the reunion was to give Colton a victim edit one last time. He got to play the victim one last time, saying, oh, it was one of the darkest and most horrible moments in my life. But he always says it in a way that he is the victim in a situation where he was stalking and harassing someone. He was stalking and harassing a woman. If he was someone who was actually taking responsibility for his actions, he probably would have said it was one of the most horrible things he did in his life, not one of the most horrible moments of my life. He never talks about his own actions. And so, yeah, him pretending at the reunion like stalking his ex-girlfriend was a traumatizing time in his life was fucking laughable. So, disappointing there. I don't really think anything else at the reunion was worth talking about. Like, I am glad that Natalie called out her fellow faithful as one of the only smart gamers towards the end game to say that Candiace basically handed us a win by going after Rob and we still didn't take it. And it is still why I condemn Rob's game and have all season, because in any other season, we've seen it happen where traitors turn against each other, and there's at least a few smart enough Faithful to take note of that and try and get the others, the traitors out and rally votes against the actual traitors. But this season, that didn't happen because of bird brain bitches like Mora. And I don't want to hear any excuses for poor Mora. Oh, people are being too harsh on Mora. She was a bitch to people at roundtables all season long, especially to Ron. So Mora gets no sympathy from me. Glad she got humiliated in the end. It's what she deserved. Other than that, really just glad this season is over at this point. Glad to be free. Glad there's more reality television starting so I could talk about that instead. Because, yeah, the second half of this season was definitely down there with some of the worst reality TV seasons I've seen. Down there with the worst of Big Brother, with the worst of Survivor. Like, the casting this season really sucked. And as I said last week, it's evidence that it sucked. And it's evidence that production and NBC, Universal, and Peacock realizes that, because the next season isn't celebrities. It's finally going to be real people, because they really did jump the shark with this season. And last thing I'll say is I'm glad that Candiace just got a deal with CAA, one of the best talent agencies out there. I think they saw that she tried her best to carry the entertainment this season on her back, and that once she was out of the game, we got some of the most boring, cringe episodes of the franchise. So good on Candiace. She is now with the top talent agency out there, and I think it's much deserved. I've always liked her. In the end, Rob did deserve to win. I just will never buy into the hoopla that he just played this amazing game with those acting skills. No, he was just on a season with the dumbest bird-brained bitches of Faithful you'll ever fucking see.